And the fourth area where we're seeing a lot of people already starting to, well, it's ongoing, but death toll will increase dramatically from the deployment of 5G, because I think most of you probably realise 5G is being deployed under cover of this so-called pandemic. And because of that, the damage that's being caused by the electromagnetic radiation at the 5G level is having a shocking impact on particularly insects and birds initially, but certainly ultimately on humans. And the documentation on the damage from this is extensive, as again, you may well be aware. So we've got this agenda to kill off a substantial proportion of the human population. It's not an accident, it's deliberate, and it's intended as part of the overall agenda. And the other side of that coin is to control those left alive, and preferably as transhuman slaves. So again, if you have you don't have to look too far on the internet to find the documentation on the whole transhumanist agenda and technocracy. And again, transhumanism is really where they use either genetic manipulation or technological implants in the brain or body, both of which are intended to control your behaviour. And technocracy is where you have a merger, if you like, of society and technology, which allows much higher degrees of social control. So they're trying to reduce the human population and make certain that those left alive are basically transhuman slaves who live in a technocracy where they are fully controlled. And there's many elements to this technological society they're creating. And I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of a smart city. And they are basically, all of our cities are being simultaneously more or less created in the form of a smart city even now. Obviously 5G is crucial to that, and 6G they hope to have by 2028. And that smart city, whether it's being created out of one city that already exists, or there's about a dozen of them being built out around the world, such as Neom in Saudi Arabia being built in the middle of the desert, neom.com, you can check it out if you like. These smart cities where they intend to imprison us all. And there's many components of that. So it's everything from the fact that you will have a digitised personal identity, and I know Denmark's well advanced on that track. You might be leading the world, but no one's far behind you, I can assure you. And you'll have that digitised identity will mean that instead of you being, Mads Nielsen or Robert Burrowes or whoever else you are, you will be a set of data that's recorded and preferably in your body. So, for example, there's extensive technology being deployed around the world. For example, facial recognition cameras. Now, unlike traditional surveillance cameras that you're all pretty familiar with, no doubt, a facial recognition camera can take a three-dimensional image of your face, and it's as unique, obviously, as your fingerprint or your handprint or an iris scan or a voice recording. But the intention is to get as many of these biometric data about you as they can and use this to create your digitised identity. And it's being done under the so-called need that we have to have this digitised identity to access rights and freedoms. And of course, it's the exact opposite. Once this digitised identity has been created, it's going to be connected with things, other parts of your life, such as perhaps if you've got a legal record, it'll be connected with that. Your health records will be part of it. In the end, your internet search history will become part of it. Your bank records will become part of it. And so instead of being, again, this unique human individual that we all recognise by face and who has a football team and a religion and a spouse who looks like this and a bunch of kids, whatever, you'll simply be an identity. And whether or not you're able to access the sort of goods and services that you need will be controlled. And it will depend on whether you have an adequate social credit score. So this digitised identity connected to all of the elements of your life, health, education, police check status, legal, whatever, will make up this social credit score, and that will decide what you're allowed or not allowed to do. Now, beyond this, there's a whole network of smart devices and systems that are available to them. And unfortunately, people are buying these and putting them in their homes. So the smart television, for example, but, you can get everything from a doorbell to, these, Alexa or whatever, these voice things people put in their homes where they can ask a question and get an answer. And your refrigerator can spy on you if it's got this smart technology in it. So by deploying these smart devices connected via 5G, they're able to keep very close track of everything you do, which is why even your security around computer and phone use is quite an issue as well. So beyond this, there's a whole range of technologies, including, like they're putting up these lamp posts, if you like, now, and lights at the top, but they're going to have cameras on them, and they'll be using that to monitor your movements, whether in person or in a vehicle. So if you go in a vehicle up a highway, every time you go past a camera, you'll be photographed. That will be immediately transferred to your file, and they'll be keeping track of your movements in real time. Some of the more obscure changes that are being made, which I think are worth mentioning briefly, one is that traditional policing is being transformed. They're going to be able to use the technology that they're using to spy on you to identify whether you're doing something that is approved or not. And one of the things they're doing is creating a system where there'll be a drone, for example, on each of these lampposts where these cameras are. And if you're in an area where you're not supposed to be, that drone will inform you. And if you don't comply with the directive immediately, it will be equipped with an LED, basically an electromagnetic gun. And these guns, for example, might be used once they, zap you with an electromagnetic charge. It might, for example, make you vomit. And so if you're not willing to comply with the order from the drone, they'll simply be using these puke guns to make certain that you've really got no choice unless you want to just keep vomiting. So the point is, again, they've got this vast range of technologies which are being used to imprison you in your home, and with what's the technique called geofencing, they'll be able to control how far you can travel from your home. And again, they'll have both technological limits on that, but also physical ones. So, for example, in these smart cities, people are sort of guessing 5Ks will be about the limit of the amount of distance you can travel from your home, and that will be to do essential shopping. Although in time, even that will be eliminated because they'll be having drones deliver what you've ordered from the supermarket to your door. Another key link to the digital ID will be central bank digital currencies. As you no doubt know, they're doing everything they can to get rid of cash. The purpose of having the CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, is to control what you spend your money on. And so again, certain things will be approved. That will be probably determined largely by your own social credit score, but also more generally, you'll be limited in what you can purchase. So again, that's just another means they'll have for controlling it. So I don't want to bore you by talking about this too long, but I think it's really important that the average person, in my experience, has no concept of the severity, the depth, the profundity, if you like, of the changes that are being imposed on us as we speak. This is happening. I know Denmark's advanced on digitised ID. That's going to be used to control what you can do. Other countries aren't going to be far behind, I can assure you, as I said before. And the point is, again, that this heinous world I'm describing is the one they intend to implement. And if you listen to any number of World Economic Forum spokespeople, Klaus Schwab, Yuval Harari, but others as well, they'll certainly describe all these changes, and whether it's to do with banking, how far you can move and so on, it's all there. So a couple of questions that come up are, can political parties save us? Can legal systems save us? And the reality is that they can't. And that's simply because, as you would know again, the global elite has done a great job over an extended period of putting key players of its own, if you like, in our governments. And again, Denmark's no exception. And these, some of them come out of a program called the Young Global Leaders Program, and people like Trudeau and Macron and Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand are people who are more widely known as sort of part of this program, but they are everywhere in every country. They're not necessarily the president or the prime minister, but they are people who are well placed in government to make certain that the elite agenda is understood. And if you look at what happened when this so-called pandemic hit, really every government just went along straight off. So I think at that point, even probably the average person, even if they didn't do much with the information, must have been a bit intrigued that, gee, our government didn't decide this, the World Health Organization did. Well, of course, the World Health Organization is a front for the elite. So the point is that, again, you've got these elite organizations deciding what's going to happen, and then governments have really fallen over. And the important thing to recognise is that they really did have no choice, because there were 5 national governments that resisted the elite narrative. All 5 of the presidents of those countries are now dead. And that was Burundi, Eswatini, Ivory Coast, Tanzania and Haiti. So, and in the case of Tanzania, their national president had a PhD in chemistry. He made the mistake of creating a video. Yes, I can see Mads nodding, he's seen it. He made a video ridiculing, the whole concept of testing things, because he had a paw tested and a can of oil and, some animal, sheep, I think, a goat. And the point was, of course, he was getting, results, yes, positive or negative on COVID-19. So he made quite a good job of that video, but it cost him his life. So I think the point is that most politicians know how their world works. They know their power is limited to very narrow parameters, and they're much more inclined to take orders from those that don't have the power to remove them, if they're lucky, or kill them at worst. Consequently, the focus of the protests, for example, for that reason, never really had a chance. The good news is that, people like yourself have seen that. And so, we're learning how to do it more effectively. And the tragedy is that not enough people yet have seen that we can't succeed that way. Same goes with legal challenges. The elite has long controlled legal processes, and it itself operates well beyond the rule of law. And it will never be held account by any existing legal system, national or international, for what's taking place, and that is just reality. I can't imagine a circumstance where they can be put, the people who need to be put in such a circumstance. Doesn't mean we can't defeat them, but we're not going to defeat them in court, and that's the point.